Habsburg Castle, Switzerland, built in 1020. The Habsburgs moved to Austria and expansion began under the Duke of Styria, Frederick III, who inherited Upper and Lower Austria in 1475. His son Maximilian married Mary of Burgundy in 1477. She died 5 years later after a horse fall, and the children by contract were raised in Burgundy, with Maximilian as a regent, not regnant. In 1490, Maximilian returns to Austria, acquires the Tyrol and its debt, and marries Anne of Brittany by proxy. France besieged Brittany and the marriage is annulled, and Charles VIII consolidates the French state by marrying Anne. Maximilian becomes emperor in 1493, arranges the marriage of Philip the Fair to Joanna of Castile, who after the death of 2 siblings and 3 nephews unexpectedly inherits Castile in 1504. In 1515 the double marriage of Ferdinand and his sister Mary to Anna of Hungary and the future king Louis II, which bequeaths Bohemia and Hungary to the Habsburgs after the Hungarian king Louis II dies at Mohacs in 1526. Charles' legacy is determined by his first challenge. When Luther walks away from Worms unrepentant, Charles matches Luther's intransigence and decrees the Edict of Worms, which declares war on Protestantism. Finally, fleeing from the Schmalkaldic League, he watches on as Ferdinand pursues a policy of coexistence with the Peace of Passau and Augsburg. Crippled by gout, Charles abdicates the Holy Roman Empire, the Netherlands, and Spain. After procuring the Peace of Passau and Augsburg, Ferdinand backed the conciliatory Colloquy of Worms to resolve religious disputes. He divided the Habsburg hereditary lands, the Erbland, between Maximilian II, Charles, Duke of Styria, father of Ferdinand II, and Ferdinand, Duke of Tyrol. Maximilian married Maria, Philip II's sister, and became the highly cultured, multilingual, much-loved regent of Spain. Back in Austria, he declared himself to be neither Protestant nor Catholic, and called for religious toleration. His eldest son, Rudolf, became emperor in 1576 and moved the court from Vienna to Prague in 1583, where it became a centre for art, alchemy and science. He never married but had a passion for saucy paintings and the occult, was declared incapable due to mental illness and replaced by his brother Matthias. His intervention on behalf of Catholics in the royal town of Donauworth created the combatants for the 30 Years' War. Cardinal Klesl secured the election of Matthias in 1612 and became chief minister. His concessions to Bohemian Protestants incurs the wrath of Archdukes Ferdinand and Maximilian, who invite him to dinner and kidnap him. Emperor Matthias dies in 1619, and Ferdinand II begins his counter-Reformation crusade, quickly igniting the 30 Years' War. His son Ferdinand is instrumental in the assassination of Wallenstein, and then co-commanded the imperial army to victory over the Swedes at Nordlingen, also co-negotiating the Peace of Prague and urging the inclusion of Protestants. Ferdinand III becomes emperor in 1637 and inherits a depopulated Erbland and empire in financial ruin. Leopold unexpectedly becomes emperor and reigns for 47 years. The Turks fail to seize Vienna in 1683 and are driven from Hungary by Eugene of Savoy. Leopold repeatedly allied with William III, whose life's work was opposing the expansionist wars of Louis XIV, culminating in the Spanish succession. The early death of Joseph leaves the Allies' candidate Charles VI potentially uniting the empire with Spain, at which prospect the maritime powers conclude the Peace of Utrecht, forcing the emperor to follow. Charles VI reigned for 29 years and was never reconciled to the loss of Spain. In 1713 he established the Pragmatic Sanction to secure the succession of his daughter Maria Theresa, despite which, upon his death in 1740, Prussia invaded Silesia and a Franco-Bavarian army occupied Upper Austria. Baby in arms, Maria Theresa appealed to the Magyar nobility and occupied Bavaria as Charles Wittelsbach was crowned. Charles dies in 1745 and his son pledges to vote for Maria Theresa's husband Francis. Francis I and his brother lose the Second Silesian War to Frederick the Great. Maria Theresa then refused to sign the British negotiated Treaty of Aix-la-Chapelle and began reorganising the military to regain Silesia. The diplomatic revolution sees Britain ally with Prussia and Austria ally with the old enemy France. With Austria, Russia, Imperial Germany, Sweden and France poised to attack Prussia, Frederick preemptively occupies Saxony, beginning the 7 Years' War. The war ends with the Treaty of Paris and 5 days later the Treaty of Habsburgs. Prussia emerged as a great power, Britain as a world power, and Austria failed to retake Silesia. Joseph II is an energetic and intelligent reformer. He expels the Jesuits and attempts to end serfdom. He condemned the French monarchy for provoking the revolution, and his equally enlightened brother Leopold II encouraged Louis XVI to sign the French Constitution. His son Francis II negotiated 3 coalitions against Napoleon, who occupied Vienna the day after Nelson's victory at Trafalgar. The Confederation of the Rhine aligns German interests with France, and the Holy Roman Empire is dissolved. A final coalition commanded by Wellington defeats Napoleon, and Metternich orchestrates the Congress of Vienna, establishing European monarchies for the next century.